Welcome to the August MyMobileVille meetup. We've got plenty of really cool stuff to talk about tonight. We've got Stephen Citron on the Hangout. He's going to be talking about something cool as well, give his firsthand experience to something. And we've got Richard Meadows and me here in the room. So we'll see if anyone else is joining us on the Hangout. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is this time last month, the experience of having my garage burglarized. I had just come home from work. I was swinging by long enough to grab some of the things that I do for the Hangout, and pulled up to the garage and saw that the door was open and learned that I lost a lot of stuff. As it turns out, as techie as I am at that time, I did not have cameras in the garage, but I did have a neighbor who had some cameras, so I got footage of the vehicle that was responsible for it. Unfortunately, it was only open 10 minutes. My mother-in-law had left and thought she put the door down, but she was in a hurry down. And on the footage, because that was like at 4:30, and so then on the footage at 4:40, this truck drove on by, and it went by a couple of times, so I think it was probably scoping things out and then finally hit the garage, but got me for a lot of music equipment that I normally don't store in the garage, but I did this particular week, and had a power washer that was chained up in the garage. They cut that with bolt cutters. I thought I had a heavy-duty chain on there and wasn't heavy-duty enough. I used the thing once.
That sucks.
Weed eater with the attachments, tools. I'm still discovering stuff missing. Even just this weekend, I was working on some stuff. I'm like, I'll be darned, I even got this tool or whatever the case might be. But so I was stoned. Obviously, involved the police and the detective. Shared the video, the pictures. No leads on any of that. I just share it with anybody I possibly can. As a matter of fact, one of the apps that I use on my phone, and I highly recommend anyone, no matter what neighborhood you live in, is called Nextdoor. And we use it in the Germantown, Schnitzelburg area and have, well, actually it's more like Schnitzelburg and Old Louisville are kind of like a community together. I think that's more like probably connected and more over the Bardstown roadway, but you end up having several communities that are in an area that are connected on Nextdoor, and you can share and communicate things. So immediately I shared the theft on there, and other people were chiming in, and so you just try to share. And so I highly recommend it. It's not just about theft stuff. You can share community events and everything, and it's called Nextdoor. There's a website and an app, and it's very handy. So hopefully people are going to be using it more for positive things, to where they might say something like, hey, we want to have a big neighborhood cookout or a big neighborhood yard sale or whatever the case might be, and they could put it on the Nextdoor. So I just mentioned that because I immediately got on there to just share with people, hey, this is the vehicle, so if anyone else happens to be in the area and sees this white truck, let me know. So I haven't heard anything. So I ended up having to buy new music equipment. I'm slowly buying all the other equipment that was taken. But what I also did, right following after, was finally got off my butt and did what my wife had been asking me for a couple of years to do, was put in a camera system. So what I ended up putting in was just, I shopped around on Amazon, and I know there's numerous different kinds of camera systems you can elect to get. I got one that's, the brand is called Amcrest, A-M-C-R-E-S-T. I wasn't as concerned with remote viewing as I just wanted to make sure I was going to have a good DVR that would be recording all of the cameras, so that, thinking to myself, kicking myself, wow, if I already had this in and I hadn't procrastinated doing this, I would have had footage of the guy or guys doing this theft and really had something more substantial to provide to the police. Had images that I would have shared on the news. I don't care what, as a matter of fact, I was on the news. I called Wave 3 and they came over and actually interviewed me. But so point being is that it turns out this Amcrest unit is remotely accessible, which is very, very cool, and I'll show in a moment and just share like what it's like. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it also wasn't super expensive. I ended up going with an 8-channel DVR that cost me about $250, and then the cameras were a measly $25 a piece. Blows me away because years ago I used to work for a security camera company out in LA, and even one here in Louisville for a bit, and cameras used to cost a fortune. And I mean, that really nice cameras still cost a lot because you're getting what you pay for. So obviously these $25 cameras are not the greatest in the world, but they're damn good. And I guess just from mass production that it just blows me away that cameras are $25 and the way these things see in the dark, etc., is just amazing. So I ended up getting several cameras, got the 8-channel unit, you can get a channel, 8-channel, larger, etc. And it's connected hardwire to our router, and then otherwise I'm able to access the cameras from an app on my Android phone. My wife is able to access them on her iPhone, and thus far I haven't really found a solution to like easily access it via like from my Chromebook or from another computer to where you can just access it. But I think there's some settings I haven't played with yet on it to where you can go into the administration stuff and make it accessible to where you basically would be connecting back to your home router and viewing them on any computer if you wanted to. So it'd be nice to be able to do that, but I really do everything I need to from the phone, which I'm going to show in a moment. But already I just had some minor incidents where there were just like some kids in the neighborhood who were horsing around and somebody was wondering what was going on, and lo and behold, I had footage of it. Someone else unfortunately did have, it was a totally unrelated incident, but somebody threw a rock through the back window of their car, and I looked at footage that I had and there wasn't anybody that came up and down the alley, so however they got over to where their car was, they never came back past my house, so I unfortunately didn't have footage. So I highly recommend that if you've got property of your own, now obviously if you rent, that's not an option, but if you've got property of your own to spend the money, you could get an inexpensive like 4-camera system and have it be like in the low 200s. And all things considered, as much money that I ended up losing and having to go out and buy new music equipment, so I had a gig coming up. I had to just, so there I go back out on Amazon, and it hurt so bad to just suddenly go back through like my previous orders and say, buy again, new power mixer, buy again, some 15-inch cabinets, buy microphones, and it just, I had to do it because I had to just be equipped to play another gig. And so it stung me, and so I'm just imploring anyone who, if you have stuff you care about, and again, I said earlier, I normally don't keep the music equipment in the garage, but I did this particular time because I was getting ready for another gig, so I thought I was being efficient by having it out there and be staged. Otherwise, what they would have gotten away with was stuff that's normally just stored in the garage, but even having the power washer chained up didn't do me any good. So they're still going to take what they take, and it's not necessarily going to get your stuff back, but I would love to have provided some information and said, here are the guys, and maybe detectives suddenly catch them in some other crime, and just justice is served. So, and the best you can hope for is maybe these cameras are going to be deterrents as well, because then the cameras themselves came with some cheesy. I was just getting on Amazon and finding some nice, like 8.5 by 11 plastic signs. One of them is big, bright yellow and says "Smile, you're on camera," and the other one's a little bit more official looking that just say this area is being filmed with a surveillance system. And I put those like on a telephone pole, and the "Smile, you're on camera" is actually right on our garage, right near kind of the touchpad that would open up our garage door, so that if someone's going to think about it, at least that's getting their attention. They look up and go, yeah, those look like they're real. Maybe I won't do it. And it's going to serve a deterrent. So enough of talking about that particular to show the app, since it does have the mobile aspect, and that's what we're supposed to be talking is mobile stuff. So it's just, and there's a couple of different apps they've got. Now, I've not explored the other ones because we've only had the system in for a short while, but this one is just called MCrest Link. And what you're seeing here, and I know that me filming my screen is not going to be the best shot that you see, but this is one of 2 cameras that I've got that are outside of my garage, and I've kind of got them crossing one another. So if someone got the wise idea, they thought, I'm just going to get on up there with a baseball bat and smash down a camera, the other camera is going to be catching them. And I'm even thinking of adding a 3rd camera someplace else that would just get a totally different angle because I still have extra channels on the DVR. So again, so if someone thought they're going to be a wise guy and think they're going to have, they're going to like, oh, I'll get both of those cameras. That I'd have something else that would catch it. Maybe part of that's maybe a little over paranoid right now because really this is quite sufficient coverage. But I'll just show you that I've also got a shot that is the inside of my garage, so you can see that the blank space is where my car would normally be parked, and otherwise there's my wife's escape in there. This would have been an awesome shot for me to have had.
Yes.
Because most of the theft was happening like right over here. It was in front of my car where the power washer was, and it was chained up to an area over there. And So with the door open and my car gone, that was probably the first thing that caught their eye. Then they went on in there, and in front of my wife's vehicle was where I had all my equipment stacked. So then it was like, oh my gosh, I've hit pay dirt, and boom, there's someone just taking all the stuff on out. So I would have had multiple times back and forth. I would have had some great footage of a person there. Otherwise, this is an example somewhat. You can see that it actually is showing black light. There's a window in the garage that is illuminating some, but I'll have to see if I can pull up a shot that shows us a nighttime shot. It's amazing. Another shot here just shows my back porch, and it's going to be a color shot. Now, at night, when this is totally dark, the porch light doesn't even need to be on, but you'd swear that the porch has got a light on the ceiling illuminating the whole thing. Is how well this infrared. Once the light is low enough, the camera immediately switches to black and white and goes in infrared mode. Matter of fact, coming back over to the garage shot, is that actually it's this other garage shot because they cross each other. Right up in the very corner, you can't really see it on the screen here, but you can end up seeing the other camera is right in the corner of the shot. At night, it's like a glowing orb because it's cool because then the one camera is picking up the other's infrared lights. And so out here, there's street lights on the alley and the park anyway, so this is just lit up like total broad daylight. It just ends up being a black and white shot. So as you can see that this is just a quick way I can even go to a grid view and see 4 cameras at a time with it. And this is really, I'm just connecting back to that DVR. I didn't have to do anything other than when you set up what your admin password is.
Must be a cat or a dog.
Oh, yeah, someone's out on the back porch.
Yeah.
So then if all of a sudden, say like in this instance that I did want to like look at this, yeah, it looks like our small dog Lucky is out there on the back porch, then I could go up and I could tap on playback up at the top, choose the time, and go back and forth. The one thing I've noticed the app doesn't do is allow for you to see the motion events, whereas if I'm at home, and again, like I said, there's other apps, so there might be an app that's a little bit more robust, and I'd even be willing to pay for it if Amcrest has one, but I just, again, this is served for me right now, but I would love that if you did have an event that you knew that something took place, it was at 10:15, that you just be able to go right to that, tap on 10:15 and have it start playing. Instead, playback, you choose which of the cameras of yours do you want to look at and what time frame, and then you're able to watch it. And so you're, motion or no motion, you're watching a segment of time. So, but still remotely that you want to see, because to add to it, I know you have a question, but I also have on my watch as well as my phone, I've got a Wink system, and I've talked about that in previous meetings, where I've got a Wink hub, and I now have a Chamberlain garage door detector that when the garage door goes up, I get a notification on my watch and my phone saying the garage door's gone up. And then when it goes back down, I get a notification. If the garage door stays open more than 4 minutes, then my watch goes off again and it says, shut the door. And if I wanted to look and see what's going on, I immediately could just go to the app on the phone and be like, what's going on here? Let me go back over. I'm going to just take a look and see what's going on. And then I see, oh, okay, Denise is out. She's taking like the recycling out. That's why it's been open that long. Then I'm good. But even if I didn't, if I was in doubt and even couldn't look at the camera, I'd immediately just tap on my watch and shut the door. What I've also done with the Wink is that it connects to Philips lights. And so I got just a simple light bulb from Home Depot that cost like $12 a piece. I bought those little cans that are just like a little stand-up light. It's just that, nothing fancy, and screw that light bulb into there, and I bought 4 of them. One's in my wife's office down in the basement. One's on our first floor. One is, well, actually 2 on the first floor. One is sitting over, it's behind the cabinet where the TV stuff is. So our TV's mounted on the wall. There's a cabinet on the floor, it's behind there. So when it illuminates, it just like illuminates the wall. And then one's in the foyer, and then one's upstairs in the bedroom. So that there's 4 lights in the house that have no purpose other than when the garage door is open more than 4 minutes, those lights all light up. So that if I happen to miss it on the watch and the phone, etc., and my wife's suddenly just like sitting and reading, and maybe her phone's downstairs, because she's not like me and always have her phone by her side. Her phone could be in her office charging, but she's sitting and she's reading a book in the living room, and if that light suddenly came on, then she's going to go and shut the door. As a matter of fact, the other night, it was Sunday night, I played at the fair. I got home, it was probably like about 11:30, and my bass player and I were taking stuff out of my vehicle, putting it in his vehicle, and the door was open more than 4 minutes. And suddenly I could hear, because with the Chamberlain garage door shutter, that if you remotely shut it, you hear first is just the sound of the thing going like beep, 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 meaning the door's about to shut. And so there I'm hauling stuff from my vehicle over to his vehicle. I suddenly hear the beep, and I'm like, yeah, Denise is about to shut the door. She didn't know what time I was getting home and just thought, oh, shoot, I just saw the light come on. I'm shutting the door. And then at that time, she came on out the back door to see, and I'm like, all right, honey, it's me. But it was just cool to see it worked as advertised. So I'm hoping that I don't get stung again, because I certainly have a lot of measures in place. I'm trying to leverage both the home automation kind of stuff with the Wink, with those lights, as well as with the app to be able to access the cameras. I can show as well that if I did have a doubt about the door, here's my Wink app, and it shows the door shut. If I tap that, the door will open. Tap it, it'll shut. I go over here to the lights, and there's those 4 lights. One of them I've got named foyer lamp, Denise's office, bedroom, and living room. And then there's a group as well that's just all lights. So then I could tap and all 4 of those lights would come on. If I did that right now, that'd freak Denise out, so I'm not going to do it. But that's basically where I can just monitor, that this would say door opened 2 minutes ago. And so that is, the Wink was only like, normally they're $50. A friend gave me, he had an extra Wink and said, here, you've got to try this. And of course, now I got bit by the bug. Now I'm just thinking of what other things can I've even connected my Wink to my Amazon Echo. But now it's actually called the Amazon Alexa. And so that I can say, I can't door Alexa, turn on the foyer light. And then she go, okay, and then boom, the light comes on. But now those lights, as I mentioned, all 4 of those lights have one purpose. They're a garage door indicator. Hey, the door is open, shut that damn door. That's what I've got right now, but I'm looking forward to adding some more stuff to that functionality of Wink, having that mobile connectivity, as well as for the stuff that ended up showing up on the watch, that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much my story on that whole horror. I've tried to make it a positive. It's turned into me being able to get more gadgets to solve that problem. But, I mean, to the tune, I literally, somewhere between $3,000 or $4,000 of stuff that I lost. Mm-hmm. At first I thought that was like $2,000, but then I realized I had more music equipment out there than I thought when I discovered, oh my gosh, I left those 2 Rubbermaid containers out there that had all my lights and yada, yada, yada. So it was a sizable loss. I take all that back. I'd give all this tech right now that I just got back if I could know that I didn't have that major loss. That stunk. So.
Now, you said those are on a wire for the router?
They are.
Hardwired.
Yes.
Not Wi-Fi.
Correct, and that was part of the reason I procrastinated.
So you put a switch in, I'm assuming, right?
Well, I have a
router.
No, the cameras aren't Wi-Fi. I mean, hardwired. I mean, well, they're hardwired, but just with a video cable that goes back to the DVR.
Oh,
the
okay.
DVR itself.
DVR is.
Yeah, the DVR is connected to our network now.
So you can't live watch the cameras.
No, I just watched.
Oh, that was live.
Yes, because I'm accessing the DVR.
Okay.
So that was part of the reason that I procrastinated, which again, I implore you, don't procrastinate. Just shit or get off the pot. Just decide on what you want to do with some cameras and go for it. You could always upgrade or do something later. 2-3 years ago, my wife said, are you going to put a camera system in? I was like, yeah, one of these days I'm going to put a camera system in. I was looking at Wi-Fi cameras. Then I was wondering, is my router going to reach all the way out? We have a detached garage and so on and so forth. So it's not that important, and didn't do it. Plus, I've talked about this before, where I still have MobiScope cameras, which are really, I've just got like a laptop sitting in the living room, and there's a camera door, and there's a camera. So it's looking at the living room. And I've got another one that's in the kitchen. There's one that's in my wife's office, and they're a webcam that's hooked up to a computer that's on MobiScope, and I can remotely access those and see them. And those have been great when you're on vacation. You want to see the pets while people are house sitting. Yeah. And yet, I didn't have that same kind of thing out in the garage. I'd even entertained at one point in time of like just getting a cheap laptop, putting it out in the garage, and letting MobiScope cameras be out there. But I was like, oh, what do I do when it's really hot or it's really cold? Do I need to put it in a box that'd be kind of climate controlled? So you can see I just kept on hemming and hawing, procrastinating, and didn't do it. So these cameras, I ended up buying like 150-foot long cables that's got both the video cable and the power cable, and then ran them. And I do have a conduit that I ran from the garage to the house so that there's no way that someone could possibly get smart and think they're going to cut the wires. So, and then I did have to cut on into the house. So, I mean, it turned into a project for me. It was a weekend project a couple weekends ago. where I literally, I'm sitting out there with a concrete drill bit, drilling into the side of the concrete to go to the house where I've got the DVR, etc. One thing I still haven't done, which I think is a critical part of it, and I am going to order one, is a UPS, so that there'd be a backup power supply, so that the last thing you'd want is for, in the case of a power outage, that your cameras aren't recording and something does possibly happen. So I'd want to keep the cameras powered, the DVR powered, yeah, for as long as you can, and just have that UPS, and it's going to be dedicated to just that. So again, all things considered, if I spend $50 to $100 on a power supply that serves my needs for this thing, in the grand scheme of things, the bargain compared to the stuff that I lost before. So enough of the theft talk, but by all means, if anyone has any questions on this kind of stuff, you can feel free to ping me and say, hey, tell me more about the setup that you have, or that kind of stuff. Because some other neighbors have been interested in it as well and said, I want to learn more about what you've put on in. It's not difficult to do. I turned it into more of a job because I wanted to make it super secure. Yes, I could have gotten, be it a extender for the wireless router so that I could have solid Wi-Fi out there, but then Wi-Fi cameras are much more expensive.
And they don't play well with Time Warner.
Yeah, that was a concern as well. There's been times I've had in the past. I had a Linksys Wi-Fi camera out on the front porch for years, but it was back way before its time, and it'd come and go, and all of a sudden you'd expect that you got something, and it was disconnected. So I was like, you know what, the heck with that. So I'm happy that I went wired. It's just a little bit more work to where, you just need to make sure you're wired.
We'll get together later because I want to question you about something.
Okay. So then, let's see. Oh, Hangouts on the web. So I'm going to put this on, check this, so it just goes down the bottom. There we go. If you haven't heard about it yet, Google has now made Hangouts available just on the web, so that it's not like you have to go to the Hangouts app. Well, on your phone, your device, you're going to be using an app. It makes the most sense. But from a Chromebook, from a laptop, from a Mac, that you can just go to hangouts.google.com and access Hangouts. And you can make messages, start a Hangout from there, just send messages and message to people on Hangouts just right from a web interface, which is very cool. Some people have said, well, it's just yet another thing pulled out from Google+, and Google+ is going to be dead. I really don't think that that is the case. I just think that they are being smart about the fact that they want to continue to leverage the strength that is Hangouts. Some people don't want to choose to use Google+ because they're thinking, I don't want to be in another social network. And it's like, well, then fine. Why don't we take this very strong component of the Google+ community and put it where you can just access it separately. So now you've got photos.google.com, and that used to just be rolled into Google+. So suddenly that's just its own standalone thing, and now you've got hangouts.google.com. I don't know if they'd end up making events be separate, but I think that they might keep events in the community and just the posting of that stuff together as what will remain being Google+. And you can still get the Hangouts from inside of Google+. As a matter of fact, that's how I created the Hangouts on Air. You can't do that from that web interface. You can't do a Hangout from here. You've got to do it, generating it, starting that from inside of Google+. So there's still a need for it. I very much think that it's a valuable news source. It's where I've got such a strong community of other people of the like interest, and no matter what your interest might be, that I think the Google+ is still the glue, kind of Android the news of it. I'm not just people feeding, posting stuff with interest, and I add them to a circle, and it might be just a news circle of tech acquaintances, news sites, etc. And so I scroll on down through Google+, and it's copious amounts of information of my liking. And so if that's what it's for, then otherwise to do Hangouts, to do photo stuff, that you go on out to the separate apps for those, that's cool too. But just wanted to mention that the Hangouts on the web is its own little separate interface, and they've done a nice job with it. I obviously don't use it very much because on my Chromebook, then I've got the Hangouts extension is just part of the Chrome browser, so then I'm launching and all of my messages just pop right on up. I don't have to be on a web page to actually go do that. And then obviously then on my phone or on my Android Wear, then I'm doing Hangouts right from the app as well. But Certainly a lot easier for if just somebody out of the blue, you just said, you know what, would you like to join me in a Hangout, than for them to just go to hangouts.google.com and they're there to be able to join the Hangout. You know, so it's not like that they have to do anything extra special. So it makes it a little bit easier. This kind of, it's down the list of what I was going to talk about, but I'm just going to move it on up here because it kind of follows in the same suit, is an alternative to doing Hangouts is a very cool site that I learned about called appear.in, appear.in. And at work, Hangouts is blocked from us to be able to do video Hangouts from our work machines. And yet we do have offshore people that we occasionally need to meet with, and we like to be able to have video conferences. We've used other more complex video conferencing systems, but you have to be in a meeting room to where there is the conference taking the equipment there, and then to end up joining onto one of those video conferences. So that's a lot, that's elaborate, it's a lot to do, whereas it could just be, I just need to meet with this developer briefly, or we're going to end up having a stand-up. And so someone discovered this service that's called appear.in, and currently it's free because it's kind of it's very much a startup, and it does work in a variety of scenarios, and thus far at least is not blocked so that we're able to use it. And even just today, then I had a appear.in meeting with a developer from Argentina, and so that we were able to screen share, talking, you know, face to face, which that's always important as well. It wasn't just a matter of just like getting into a phone call. You know, that we were able to talk through the issue we had. He was showing me his phone, I was showing my phone. We were screen sharing, like I say, and then when we're done with the call, it was that easy. We ended up creating a special appear-in address. So, like, say right now, if all of a sudden, and I've actually made one just for myself, for my family, to where they all could join. You can have up to 9 people be on the video call. Kind of reminds me of the Brady Bunch, to where you end up having a grid of 9 boxes of people. So very much like a Hangout. So then let's say that Richard Meadows wanted to create one that was just like for family use, and it was appear.in/Meadows, and you just go to appear.in to actually create one. Then that is your room, and that suddenly is now created and is like sticky. I mean, the URL, so that at any point in time you could suddenly say, hey family, all let's just get together, and if they have it just saved as a bookmark to go to appear.in/Meadows, they're suddenly on, it comes up and just says, would you like to allow the use of your camera and microphone? Yes, boom, you're on. That easy. I mean, you're just connected. Very slick. I could see that at some point in time, appear.in is going to end up having a pay model, etc. But for right now, it's free, very easy to use. I encourage you to just try it, check it out. You know, so like I said, I created a family one and look forward. I haven't done it yet, but there's been times in the past couple of years for events, be it my mom's birthday. Once we did it for Thanksgiving or for Christmas, when I've got family all up and down the East Coast and all place, and so then some of them didn't know how to get on the Hangout. So then I was trying to remotely access their computer so I could get them on the Hangout just so that they could join it, because it was just a lot of steps to do. Whereas in this case, you could just suddenly email or text message whatever the address and go to appear.in/whatever, and boom, they're connected. Again, only up to 9 people, whereas, well, Hangouts just goes up to 10 people, but still, that's plenty for most people's use. So appear.in, very, very cool and worth mentioning. You know, it's not really a mobile thing, but still just very, very cool.
You can use it on iPad or
yes,
any other tablet or anything.
Indeed. Yes, indeed.
So you could do,
yeah,
couldn't broadcast it, but you could do it as a small group.
Yeah.
Appear.in.
Yes, I am. Appear.in. So then we have plenty of other things to be able to talk about. But Steve, do you want to go ahead and talk about your experience? Because I don't want to belabor that.
Yeah, what would you like to know, man?
Well, about your Project Fi experience. If you want to start with that.
Yeah,
I know it's a short while, so I'm going to shut this door over here because I'm hearing this next one. Yeah. There we go. That way you can hear you without there's a presenter in the next room talking as well. So, I got a Project Fi invite as well, but I'm currently sporting the Moto X, and I'm going to change back over my camera so that just when I'm talking, I'm not the talking device setting there. And then I'm going to pull you up on the big screen there, Stephen. Uh-oh, did I lose you? You were just on a moment ago. see. All right. Did that work? Okay.
There he is.
Cool.
A little bit of lag.
I saw a thing in the menu I haven't seen before. It just said, present to everyone. And that says, stop presenting. No, so you're presenting. So I think it's working. So you've got so I was saying that I got the Project Fi invite, but it's kind of bittersweet because right now it's like I've got the Moto X. I look forward to trying Fi when I will get a new Nexus device here in the fall. But in the meantime, in talking with Steve the other day, then he said that he got his Project Fi invite. He's got a Nexus 6, and so I wanted for you to just tell about the experience.
I mean, I don't know if I'm impressed with it. I've always had AT&T and having to use T-Mobile. I'm not used to doing data coverage, especially like I've had a lot of issues indoors with it, where it drops down from LTE to Edge, and then I'm forced to connect with Wi-Fi. But that is I think that's where they're really working is with using Wi-Fi, calling with that. You do have to give up your Google Voice number, so I had to give up that. And I ended up getting a different number in order to kind of in-sync everything, so you can use the Hangouts website to send text messages to. I think in the end, it may be a bit pricey. I know my plan on AT&T was double what I'm paying. I had 20 gigs on AT&T a month, and I think for Project Fi I have 10, but I'm actually paying more. So I don't know. I have some mixed feelings on it.
So then, overall performance, would you say, what's your experience like? Because what area of town do you live?
I live in the First Point area, near New.
So I know that historically, T-Mobile's got pretty good metro coverage. So have you been out and about much to experience that handoff from T-Mobile to Sprint to?
Yeah, actually, there's actually an app called Spy, and what it does is it places kind of like a drop-down notification that stays there, and it actually lets you know what network you're on. So in this case, like right now, indoors, I'm connected to Wi-Fi, but it tells me if I got off Wi-Fi, I would be on Sprint's LTE network. And I've actually watched it where it's changed, while I'm looking at it from Sprint to T-Mobile.
And so then, have you been either surfing or talking when you've had that switch to see, is there any kind of hiccup or?
Not that I've had it gone from Wi-Fi to cellular, and I've had no issues. And actually, I started the call on Wi-Fi, and then when I looked, when I was hanging up, I was on the cellular network.
And so you say that right now it looks like that you're actually be paying more on Fi than you were on your other plan?
Yeah, I think on my AT&T plan, I was paying about $150 a month for 20 gigabytes, and I think I'll be paying $140, I think, on Fi. Okay,
so then, yeah, because I was just thinking about the math from my perspective is I've only got a 5 gig plan, and so then my plan is right at about, it's 90.
Yeah, the one advantage that it has, and I've had it, I didn't get it the first experience of that today when I went to Target. It has this new feature called Wi-Fi Assist, and what it will do is when it detects any open Wi-Fi, like at Target, it automatically connected and ran the connection through one of Google's VPN servers. The problem, though, is when you're at work or when I'm on the weekends when I'm at GD, there's a splash page that I have to either log in or agree to connect, and so it won't connect to those automatically. But if you're in a place where it's completely open, it'll automatically connect, and I think that's it'll be useful.
So yeah, I know it's not even when it first came out, people started talking about it, that it wasn't that it had a huge price advantage, but instead it was almost like the intent was just to show that there's alternative ways to be able to go about this. You know, trying to just leverage that handoff between Wi-Fi calling as well as just between the networks, et cetera. You know, because for some people, if they're on a really sweet plan that, well, those who are like fortunate enough to be grandfathered into like an unlimited plan, or otherwise, it's not necessarily for a family who'd be like in some sort of family plan where you've just got, you know, copious amounts of download capacity. But
I think that's
and some days, I mean, well, some months, should I say, I've looked at my AT&T bill and saw that I only used 2.5 or 3 gigs worth of my 5 gigs of data, and I thought, wow, so that was 90 regardless.
Yes.
If I didn't use it, I paid for it and didn't get a chance to save it. Whereas with Fi, then if I'm using, most of my data is being done at the house or when I'm at work, and then when I'm out and about, that I am consuming that 2 to 3, then maybe my bill will be more like about 50 or 60 instead of 90.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
Being what else?
yeah. Because I used to have an unlimited Verizon plan, but then it was bloody expensive, and I didn't like Verizon's control of devices, so that when I left, and ended up just at that point, I wanted to buy devices outright and have the ability to change whatever I wanted, which meant that it made more sense for me to go to a GSM network. So then I've been on AT&T for about 2 years now, and I've been pretty pleased. But I look forward to at least trying out Fi, because I'm just doing a month-to-month thing with AT&T. I could drop them and come back to me any point I want, because I use a Google Voice number. Now that's one thing I'm wary about, is I don't want to, when I would try Fi, I don't think I'm going to go and move my Google Voice number over, because I'm too much of a heavy-duty user of Google Voice. Did you do that? Do you have a Google Voice number, and did you do that?
I did end up having to give up my Google Voice number, and the other problem I didn't like was, you know, I was telling you how I had an apps for work account with Google. The ability to do online texting for your computer, they weren't supported at all. So I had to actually, when I signed up for Fi, I had to make a whole new Google email account. I ended up over the weekend putting everything to a standard Gmail account, because it's just the apps for work isn't supported. I hate having one account for just one, itty bitty service.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see, do you know if you're just going to do this as a trial for a bit and then you're going to revert back to something else, or what are your thoughts?
I'll probably keep it. I mean, the service, I haven't had much issues out and about. I don't have any problems at work. It just seems to be like when I'm in large-scale buildings, I've noticed, it's visibly noticeable the drop from LTE to either 3G or Ag. I guess I've been so used to AT&T being on LTE to finally realize, I dropped back down to 3G.
Right. I know, and I'm so used to, you get spoiled as far as just like, years ago, we didn't have this, but as we just continue to go along, you just expect to be able to go to your device. I mean, I've even been over there on Main Street in some of the buildings like Doc Pros and other places that are there, old concrete and brick buildings, and so then it doesn't matter what carrier, unless you're going to hop on the Wi-Fi of that particular restaurant, and also you're talking to somebody and you want to show them something, and you realize how much that you're actually relying to connect to the cloud.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do that right now. This sucks. My device is like worthless to me. I can't do anything, because every single thing I want to do right now, I need connectivity for. And so that this is still in its infancy as far as like this concept of bouncing between some different wireless networks and the Wi-Fi and handling it well and everything, but it'll be interesting to see as this continues to grow. Plus, and I know that you added that as a discussion item, which is kind of topical for us to segue on into that, is the Google On Hub. I will say, as soon as that was announced, I was very, very close to just ordering one and just going for it, but then there was that, my wife in the background going, now honey, you just bought a bunch of stuff. You haven't even replenished everything that you. I'm trying to. Oh, there we go. So then I didn't, but at some point in time, I would love to end up getting an on-hub because it sounds like a really cool piece of hardware. And I could see that this is just, Google it once again is trying to use it almost like a Nexus device where it's like, this is how having a wireless router should be. It shouldn't be so difficult. It's got 13 antennas. It's got speakers. Some people wonder because it looks a lot like the Echo, a little bit larger, but the reason for the speaker is the new Nearby API that they have created. So then when someone would come into the house, then you can end up allowing, through the app, to just tell it, communicate to that phone, here you're going to be on the Wi-Fi, or communicate to that laptop, here you can be on that Wi-Fi through that Nearby API. So I see it just being like a reference device to where Google's trying to make it to where Wi-Fi ends up being a bridge more to, so that it makes it easier for you just to connect and it not have to be rocket science where you have to go into your settings and go into a browser configuration that people normally don't even touch. So yeah, from sharing or even from security, so the person can be sure that they know what devices are on, because then there's just an app for you to like look and see. Little things like that with all those antennas that I can't remember how often that it does it, but it's every pretty regular basis that the channel that it's broadcasting is best an open channel to be broadcasting on. So if you did happen to have a wireless router that's close to other neighbors, or you're like in an apartment building, there's other things that are all using channel 6, then it's going to scan around and go, you know what, channel 6 is crowded. I'm going to move to a different channel, and so your wireless connection is strong. Definitely important when it comes to using something like a Roku or an Ask or whatever, to definitely find that optimal channel and improve that capability. So, but at $200, it's nothing to sneeze at as far as that's expensive for a router. My last router that I got, that's an Asus gigabit router, I got it like 2 years ago, was $189. But I considered it an investment. There's like, I'm going to have this for a while, and I really don't need something new right now, but I am intrigued by this on-hub. Do you have any thoughts on it, either of you?
Only what I've read. I have an Airport Extreme. It's $200. You know, I mean, it's the Apple thing. So, yeah. But you know, it does a lot more, and I could see it. And of course, everybody, the first deniers were just Google wanting to know more about you, so they can keep more ads on. It sounds good to me. One good system. That's
yeah. Well, and I think the part that I had mentioned earlier is about the fact that the home automation part. I know that it's supposed to be. I could see that potentially would be that plant Wink. Supposed to be. It's got that Brillo case that's supposed to be for Internet of Things. To talk to one another. Can't remember their. But anyway, so that there's just for these, it's supposed to be as well as a wireless router. So, any thoughts on it, Steve? Intrigued? Not interested? Frozen? Oh, maybe.
Nope. I think it's frozen.
It's interesting, you know, that they do call it, you know, on hub.
Yeah.
You know, so that they got the term hub right on in there. And I mean, right now we're certainly. I'm using the Wink, and yet I've even heard that Wink is kind of struggling. That company that's got Wink. So I could see myself ending up having to change if it's on hub and if it's able to talk these things that I've got going on in my house. We're still very much for all sorts of companies, including Apple and Google and Samsung, with smart things, et cetera. There's a lot of companies who are all wanting a piece of this because we're on the cusp of this becoming more commonplace to where someone does just go into a store. Target is supposed to have a store that's out in the San Francisco area that is now going to be a store that's, or I don't know if it's a store, a standalone store, but it's a section that is dedicated to home connectivity. So you know you've started to reach mainstream if you've got it in a Target store, because then that means that you're trying to appeal to those customers. Target's primary customer is the housewife. So if you've got a housewife walking into a Target and you've got something there that's supposed to be appealing to her, like, how would you like to have this baby room monitor that you can access, you know, so that while you've got the, someone else is watching your baby, you got a nanny, you're just, babysitter or whatever the case might be, and all this stuff is that easily accessible through your iPhone or your Android phone or whatever the case might be, and they're like, wow, I think I might pick that up, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, in the future this will also talk to your refrigerator and to your washing machine and yada yada, and when you suddenly have the masses starting to talk about and understand conceptually what they could do with home automation, it's when you realize we're really on the cusp of this being. I look forward to, I technically have a shortcut to where I could open up the garage door from my watch. But I looked forward to, there was actually an ad, like this time last year when they first announced, it was actually in the spring of 2014, that they announced Android Wear, and a little commercial ad showed a girl riding up on her bicycle to a garage with her friends, and suddenly she said, okay, Google, open the garage door, and the door opened. So they were hinting that, obviously a pipe dream, when you can pipe dream on things when they become a reality are two different things. But we're there. We're to the point to where there's times, because when I'm driving in my car, I have my phone sitting in the car mount, so it's right up there by the rearview mirror. And my friend who has the other Wink unit said that he actually doesn't even have a remote garage door opener in his car anymore. He just took it on out because he just reaches out and touches his phone and touches Wink and opens up the garage door that way. I still have the garage door opener. It's actually just part of my visor, so it's like it's just there. But there are times where, just for the fun of it, I tap on my phone, tap on Wink, and go, boop, and I open up the garage door. That kind of stuff is just very convenient, very handy. I'm not sure if I'm ready to go for one of those doors, like a Schlag unit, where you can unlock it with the phone, because they're doors getting hacked. What's that, Steve?
I actually have one, and I actually want my August smart lock.
And so do you open it with your phone?
Actually, I had I was at work a couple days ago, and I had family come in, and they got here before I got out, so I was able to unlock the door, and they could walk right in, and I was downtown.
And which one do you have?
It's the August smart lock. So it just attaches to the back of like a deadbolt.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was pricey, but it's come in handy.
Where did you get it?
Home Depot.
Okay, yeah, because it sounded familiar, and I was looking at some of those there at Home Depot. So it's just that box that ends up going like on the back of the deadbolt.
Yep.
Kind of thing. So then, yeah, because there's times to where, and I respect this. Years ago, my wife was actually robbed, not just burglarized. We were burglarized in our garage. My wife was robbed in her place of business, where a guy came in with a gun and robbed them. And so ever since then, she's really been unlocking the door. And so I could go out to work in the yard. I come back up on the back porch. I go to open up the door. I'm like, damn it, she's locked me out again. So, I end up having to, sometimes I even call her from my phone, or I'm just knocking on the door, and then she comes on over and she unlocks. She's like, sorry. But I can't be mad. I'm just mad at the fact that, like, I've been locked out again, but I can't be mad at the fact that she's being safe and just locking the door, because that traumatized her. She's like, I'm not going to leave the door unlocked. So I would love to have a lock like that, that in that case, I would, especially if it was with Wear, that you just say unlock, or even if it was just that you get close proximity, you just be like, you just unlock.
Yeah, it does the Bluetooth.
Yeah. So,
but I think the worst part is it freaks me out for the fact that I'll come home from work, and because it detects that I've gotten close to the door, I kind of have to think, okay, did I leave the door unlocked all day long?
Right. So kind of similar to where, because there's been times in the past that I left the garage door open, just get busy and go driving on off, and boom, there's the door sitting wide open. A little bit later, my wife says, honey, you left for work, you left the door wide open. I'm like, oh my gosh. She goes, well, I looked around, it doesn't look like anything's missing. It's like, thank goodness. In my mind, I'm just thinking, just some kid's going to come by and just steal a lawnmower or something. So now, aside from all the other things I was talking about earlier, it's just nice to where if I were just suddenly heading to work and like, I did shut the door, didn't I? That I could just look that quick, and that Wink would just, the door shut, and it's that peace of mind. So likewise, like you're saying, you're wondering, did I lock the door? And you're just able to confirm it that quickly. It's just it's a peace of mind thing. Here's an app thing. Let me switch on over to my phone. I've not played with. Do you use Pocket Casts?
No.
The app, okay.
No, I do not.
I was hoping there was going to be an Android user here as well that might use Pocket Cast. But I'll just show, this is an app. I'm not even certain that Pocket Cast makes an iOS app anyway, so I apologize for that if they don't. But this is the app that I use to listen to podcasts called Pocket Casts by Shifty Jelly. And I used to use Dogcatcher, but once I switched to this one, I just really like what they've done with this app. And this company, they're hilarious, and they're great developers. They listen, and they do a lot of cool updates. One of the most recent things that they did, and I've not really played with it myself, but, and I believe that it's under the Discover, but basically what this is allowing is using that Nearby API that I was talking about that Google has now implemented. Pocket Cast is one of the first apps to really do that, and I think if I just tap on Discover, yes, there's featured, trending, etc. See, so now I could just go on through, and it's just going to show like a normal podcast app would of like what apps there are. Then I could go over to trending and see stuff that are, Recode, etc. Top ones. So you can see I've got 2 of the top ones already installed. Then there's Nearby. Compare your podcasts with others. Allow subscriptions to be shared with people around you. This will only be active while you have this page open. So if there were other people nearby and they said allow, you could just discover podcasts that someone else is listening to, and then
Pocket Cast?
Pocket Casts, period, plural.
Oh.
And I do believe that it might just be Android, but double check while we're talking about this. So it's just cool. I'm not able to demonstrate it here because there isn't anybody. I can say allow, and let's see, it's going to search.
Yeah.
All right, so this says allow Pocket Cast to connect with other nearby devices. So then basically what it's doing is with that audio, it says send and receive inaudible pairing codes. So that's what the Nearby API is doing, is that the speaker is giving off a code that then the other microphone, the other device picks up, and boom, they're paired. Or you could do it by Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And so I'll just say allow, and I don't think it's going to find, unless there happens to be somebody in that other meeting here in this building who happens to have Pocket Cast and is sharing. It's not likely to find anything. But you can just see that, in principle, this would just connect and allow for us to share podcasts. So I wanted to mention that because I think it's very cool. If you do have an Android device, I highly recommend checking it out. Pocket Casts is a very cool app and worth every cent. I'm going to just go through a couple of these other things that are just like short mentions. There is now, I'm going to switch back over my other camera. Get that thing here. And it is that BlackBerry is coming out with what's called the BlackBerry Venice. And it is running Android and has a hardware keyboard. So they ain't dead yet. I appreciate they're trying. I'm just going to go to the link here just to pull up. It's supposed to be a November launch for it. And let me see, am I able to share my screen so I can pull this up? Screen share. I'll do it on this one. Do you see the return of the keyboard, Steve, on your screen?
No. I think you turned the camera off because all I see is your icon.
Let me see. It should be me presenting. Oh, present to everyone. How about that?
Nope. Wait, it's trying to load. I think it's loading.
This is your screen share to everyone. Still not seeing it?
Now it's a black screen.
All right, so it's just not. That's all right. I'll turn it on. So anyone who's watching this anyway, then you can just be able to check this out on your own. But essentially, this BlackBerry Venice is supposed to be, there's a picture of it so you can just see it there, Richard. That's a slider, so that slides back and down. And so it's a pretty neat looking device, and there are still people that want to have a hardware keyboard. And my hardware keyboard days are done. I'm used to just dealing with, I swipe on my keyboard, so I'm always using the swipe capability anyway. But there are people that are still fond of having that hardware keyboard type of feel, and maybe it's going to give BlackBerry a lease on life, especially if what they're going to do is from the screenshot, it's showing that it's running Android. I mean, it's got the home screen that looks just like Android, the app launcher, etc. So it'll be interesting to see what actually comes of that. Let me get back up here. Stop. Go back to my camera. All right, now is my face back on?
No.
You got it archived from broadcast, I think. Go back to you.
No, that's just
not
okay. Selected. I know, I'm still showing black over here, like where it says view. Let me go back over to Stephen for a second. Now let's go back over to me. Nothing?
Nothing.
Still black. How about if I switch, and I'll just go back over to my other camera for a minute. Do you see my Moto X?
No, it's still black.
Well,
That's interesting.
I'd be tempted to, I was thinking even having the meeting and just using a peer.in and just telling you, say, hey, let's connect that way. But then I would end up having to hang out on air that gets to be shared later, and there's actually more people that watch it later than there are that watch it live. So, but at least you can hear me, so people aren't seeing my mug, but that's okay. I'm going to pull back up my Google Keep note here so that I can just talk about some other stuff, and then we'll see if I'm able to somehow get my video back up. I'm going to turn it off for a second. And try going back to the camera. All right, well, so I've got my video up there. If I come back, great. If I'm just my talking Android Marshmallow, which that's a good segue. Just ever since there was a developer preview for the first iteration of, as it turns out to be, Android 6.0, people didn't think that it was going to be 6.0. They thought it was going to be just a 5.0 release, since Lollipop is currently at 5.1 or 5.2. But instead, Google opted to make Android M Marshmallow, and it being version 6.0. I think it probably because that there's just significant enough things in the change to the nearby APIs and permissions and other things that they decided, let's just go ahead and make it the next version. And then there's also some argument, people arguing that it's probably version 6 because you've already got iPhone 6, Samsung Galaxy, the 6 series, and so that 5 almost makes it sound like it's lagging behind. So I could see that also being Android Marshmallow is its third iteration, what they consider the final pre-release candidate version. Just so I can at least just show some of the things. And maybe you're not seeing it, Stephen, but I'm hoping that if nothing else, that on the Hangout on Air broadcast later. So then I've got it installed on an Nexus 5. And visually, there's not too often much that you're seeing different, but there is the capability to, let me see here. When I go to the volume rocker over the top, if I tap with a little arrow, you can now individually adjust the volume for music alarms or just the overall system volume separately, which is a nice little tweak that they added. And it's a lot of under the hood rather than graphic things for Android M, as far as like in permissions for apps, that if I went to apps here, and let's say if I just went to, I don't have a lot installed on here right now because I just did a pretty fresh install of this. Well, we'll say HipChat. Then you're able to see the permissions a lot clearer. I know my screen is not really focusing very well here. Let me see if I back it up a little bit, if that helps. So now you can just tap on the permissions and individually turn on or off any of those things. If, and I think if I go to HipChat here, let me say as if like that I was going to do a new message here. Oh, it says unable to connect. Retry. Oh, I'm not on Wi-Fi. That's right. That's why I'm not connecting. I'm sorry. I'm not connecting to Wi-Fi on this one. I'm not going to mess with it right now. But point being is that if I in HipChat suddenly went to use the camera and take a picture to send, like with iOS has been experiencing for the longest time now, you'd have a prompt saying, do you wish to use the camera? Do you wish to allow this app to use the camera? Whereas before, permissions were all just an upfront thing, a laundry list of, this app is going to use your phone dialer, this app is going to use your camera, this app is going to do this and that and the other, and scaring the shit out of somebody before they've even installed an app. So that is a pretty significant thing, as well as another big one is supposed to be, just like we were talking about earlier, Richard, where you said that Siri works when you say, hey Siri, when it's plugged in. Reason being is Apple doesn't want for people to be upset at start complaining about battery performance when the Siri when they having to be actively listening, thereby eating up battery. So battery is always just that thing that people are very concerned about. How like that to where the only way that Siri can work with a voice command is when it's plugged in. Well, it is now called, I want to make sure that I think it's called snooze. No, doze. I knew it was a sleeper. Like doze, D-O-Z-E, is that what doze ends up doing, again, borrowing something from iOS, is that when your device, from the accelerometer, when it detects that the device has been sitting still for a bit, it will start to power down things and save battery, and that's what an iOS device already does, and allows for, as it's sitting there idle, it won't eat up battery, whereas if you have, let's say you've got Facebook, and you've got Twitter, and you've got Instagram, and all these other apps that are pinging every so often on an Android device, you could just be letting it set and not even actively using it, and yet come back later and go, what the hell just happened to my battery? I haven't even been using it, but it's because all those things have been running in the background. So doze is supposed to really control a lot of that, but it's only going to be when it's been sitting and it knows that it's sitting still. If it's in your pocket and you're moving around, doze is not going to activate. You're still going to end up having that battery power, battery eating. But those are some of the major things about Marshmallow. The cool thing is that at least we do know that it is version 6.0 and going to be coming out on obviously the Nexus devices first. I'm sure that now that this is the near to release version of Android M, that it's probably already getting into the hands of like the Samsungs and whatnot, so that they could, as quickly as possible, update their latest and greatest devices. And as far as we know, it'll probably be in October once, first we're going to get through the Apple release of iOS 9 and the news of all that fade on off, and then have an October announcement. And then I look forward to there also being a new, this is the Nexus 5, so I'm looking forward to the 2015 Nexus 5, which is supposed to be being made by LG again, and then a Nexus 6 that will be the 2015 Nexus 6 made by Huawei, is what the current rumor is. And so then they'll both come out with Android M right out of the gate. So I look forward to when, and probably end up being maybe the October meeting, maybe the November meeting, but I look forward to being able to show off the latest hardware with that. And then, like Stephen, being able to play around with Project Fi, because then I'll finally have a device that will be Fi capable. So,
but then a new Apple device probably.
Right, yes.
And 9.1 or 9.
Right. Yeah, I know that we've been talking about Android stuff tonight, but certainly I know that the announcement, I guess, is slated for
the 9th.
The 9th, and then devices available at the 18th. Yep. So then it's going to be interesting, and I'm sincerely interested in watching it closely. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'm not an Apple hater. It's just that you end up choosing an ecosystem you go with, and I choose to go with the Android ecosystem. I like pure Android, so that's why I'm going back to a Nexus rather than a Moto X. The new Moto X is a very nice devices, but I want to go back to a Nexus device. I want to have the purest of pure that I could have in that experience, because I'm using all the Google products. But I respect the fact that people, being on iOS, the iOS 6 and 6 Plus are stellar pieces of hardware. I use them regularly at work. Still prefer the user experience that I end up getting on Android over it, but they're damn good. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Apple will do this predictive stuff that they're going to do, and how it all fares out, because I've mentioned about this before. Apple makes great hardware, and they make great software that runs on the hardware. Where they've always, their Achilles heel has been is the services. All of the stuff that's outside of that has not been their strong point, so that iTunes has not been, and the iCloud, and any other services that they've had, that is that layer is the part that is not really a strength. And there's been certain things that I don't necessarily call them a failure, but then it's just they don't pay much attention to it. Be like, don't pay attention to that over here. Let's just shine the light over on this thing, this new sparkly thing, and get your paying attention.
Look at the squirrel over here.
Right. So then, that said, I know that Apple is really hell-bent on pushing this whole thing about privacy, because they realize, I mean, that's why the whole beacon technology 2 years ago kind of quietly just went on a back shelf, because the Eric Snowden stuff came on out, and the last thing you want to be talking about is that your device could be walking along and beacons are going to be pinging it, and so that now the beacons are just starting to take hold again. And yet they're still capitalizing on the whole privacy paranoia of saying, we don't know anything about you, we don't want to, we don't keep it like others do, insinuating that Google does have all that data and that Google's going to sell your personal data, so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of that discussion, but point being is that their slant is, we're now with iOS 9 going to be able to offer predictive stuff and tell you stuff similar to like what Google now, but I'm fascinated to see how they're going to do that when they truly don't know the stuff about you that they claim that they don't know. If you are using an iPhone, a Mac, and an iPad, and each device is only going to know that information, and that device doesn't share, that information is not shared on over, I want to see how that experience truly will be, because there is handoff,
Yes.
but this is different to where we're talking about maybe you enter an event into your calendar. How do they handle it? If you're using just like the calendar function, and so that, how do their servers not know that it's you, so that you make it on this device, it goes on out to the cloud, and it's also supposed to tell this device and tell this device. And you mean to tell me that out here you don't know that all these things, and that it's all tied? So I mean, it's a part that I'm still just following closely with fascination, because it seems like that they have some sort of solution that's going to do this, that is not going to be invasive, like, or how what they paint as being invasive the way that Google has the information. So I look forward to seeing some of that functionality, as well as like what these new tweaks will be on already really great piece of hardware with the 6S. You know, what they'll be having, it's going to be some additional things. I think that one of the things is going to be that Force Touch, which I've been listening to some podcasts. I listened to Connected, which is a very iOS-centric discussion, but it's very informative for me to learn more about iOS as well, listen to their candid discussions. And some of the guys in that podcast, they really argue as to whether or not that Force Touch is going to have a use, be as beneficial on a phone as it would be when it's on a watch, or if it's on the touchpad of a computer. So it's interesting to see how that all comes in. I'm going to be watching it, you know, just like any other event. You know, on the 9th, I will be making time to be watching, you know, somebody's blog, because they don't ever do the thing live per se, but just seeing what the latest and greatest comes from iOS 9 and what they're going to be offering, because it's constantly raising the bar. I even did see one little snippet that was about the Apple Watch, something to do with the rumor that Apple was going to be doing something with a smart band that would like attach to the Apple Watch, but I don't know what that was all about. I didn't see any detail of it, but it was like that they're going to try to do something with the band to where it could end up having expanded capability. It's one of the things I do admire about the power of the fact that there's like 100 million iPhones, you know, the iPhone 6 and 6 Pluses sold, so that when you have companies out there that are trying to develop technology and you're going to ride the bandwagon, where are you going to go? You're going to develop for the one that just sold 100 million of them. So then they end up coming up with very creative third-party hardware and software solutions, et cetera, that all tie into that. And I already saw where someone had made some sort of watch band that was like an extended battery. and fits onto the iWatch.
Yes,
So then, you know,
snippet about that. Yes.
Very smart to think about an accessory so that if you were to be out and you wanted to have that capability to use just your watch, and you're going to be on a hike or doing something, and that's going to be the only thing you're going to have with you, and yet you're concerned about making sure you've got enough power for the day, well, then you'd swap your band and you'd put on that sport band that's going to be a bunch of additional battery. Great idea. And I think that we're, just like with the home automation, we're just really on the cusp of what's going to be happening with wearables. Apple is, I'm sure, examining the lackluster sales, the sales that are slowed down for the watch. I think that we've reached, I had a graphic I shared on Google Plus that just showed where you just, it almost looks like a mountain to where you've got like, at the beginning part is the early adopters, the bleeding edge, so on and so forth, and then you've got your later early adopters, and then all of a sudden there's this huge chasm, and then you finally, still going uphill, is still now getting just the people that are starting to become mainstream, and then you get, and there's just like that peak to where you've like reached the masses, and with any kind of thing, and then it goes on out to the late adopters, etc. But they said that tricky part is that chasm that's after the early adopters before you finally get to where you've got the people that'll mull over it for a bit. I think that's where we've reached with the Apple Watch, is that you had the people that didn't matter what it was going to be, it's an Apple device going to get it, just like if it was an Android or Google device, I'm going to get it. Exception being the on-hub, I have paused on that, but so there's going to be those people who are going to jump out and get it quick. Those are fascinated. Then others are going to say, I don't even know if I see a need for it. I don't see a use case for it personally for me yet. Then there could be people say, I kind of see a use case for it, but damn, that's expensive, $350 on up. Whereas, you know, up to now, their experience for like having an iPhone would be they get a subsidized device, they're paying maybe the $200. Maybe they're even waiting and getting last year's model, so they pay $99 and get last year's model for a 2-year contract. Is where you're getting those later adopters, those ones that are just saying, I don't have money to burn, and yet I'd like to have the latest and greatest. So suddenly when you've got a $350 device to start, and that's with the cheapest, lowest end device, and if someone really wanted to get the nicer one, you're talking more like $500 to $700. That's a shit pot of money you have to be spending for a device where you're not even sure if you've got a use case for it. I admit, if you notice, I'm not wearing glass currently. I've been just trying to use Android Wear. And a lot of the notifications I was getting on glass, I get on Wear. And now that I'm, of course, doing the garage notification and all that, I'm really all about getting the notifications because they vibrate on my wrist. But could I deal without either? Yeah, in all honesty. I would still get all the notifications I need to get on my phone. It's just more convenient. But I also look forward to where we're setting this platform where a lot more stuff is going to unfold as more ideas come up. Like we were talking about opening up the garage door, or opening up the deadbolt door in your house without even having to do anything, or maybe you're just touching your proximity and you're just doing that kind of thing with your watch. So there's a lot more to come, but right now I'm sure Apple is looking at like the slowing sales, and as well as looking at some of the bells and whistles that are on the watch and analytics, and go, okay, what stuff are people really using, what stuff aren't they using? Because a lot of people I do talk to have either watch, and obviously there's a lot more people that I've talked to who have an Apple Watch than Android Wear because it's not been as, it's not gotten the adoption as much, but they will just say it's the notifications. More than anything, it's the notifications that they end up getting. And it's not so much all of these apps and everything yet. Now that can change when OS 2 comes out of the watch and the apps will be able to run natively on the watch. But more times than not, it's just those things to where your phone can stay in your pocket, your purse, your coat, whatever the case might be. You get the notification, you're able to just like look down on that quick and you see it. I will also say though that it's been interesting to observe. I've been very aware. I didn't seem to mind when I get a notification, Steve, you can comment on this as well, when a notification come on glass, and you just glance on up and you see it. Granted, person go, what are you looking at? Like, I just saw a notification. But it wasn't a socially rude gesture to do, to just like look up and see it and then look away, versus when you look down at your watch.
Yeah. Like, how long are you going to talk?
Yes.
How long have I been here?
And even if it's not that, it just, I feel awkward when I'm at work and I suddenly feel it vibrate. So my phone's in my pocket, but my watch just vibrated, and I've already got it set to where I use an app that's called Field Aware. And if it's a vibration that's a hangout, I get a certain vibration pattern that I chose. So I know that it's someone messaging me. So that's not just, because I've only got priority emails, so that there could be an email that I get a vibration for. Could be an email for some other Google Now type notifications, and it'll just go bzzz, just a single vibration. but I'd still have to look down and see it. So there's times to where it's not a hangout, so it's not something urgent, but I still feel it vibrate, and I want to look. And there's just that urge to look, but then we're in the middle, we're engaged in talking. So even if it's not giving that, hey, I gotta go kind of connotation, it's still just you're breaking eye contact and look on down and just be like, was that more important than continuing to talk to me? So we still have some very social oddities to have to work out with all of this, even though that it is very convenient. It's convenient when you're by yourself. You're suddenly engaged with people. We're going to be learning some lessons here on what to do and what not to do.
Down the road, Google Glass will be your glasses. It won't be a screen.
I mean, it'll be like this.
I'm wearing,
Yep.
and suddenly in front there'll be something there,
Yep.
and you won't have to change your eye pattern or anything. You'll just refocus on it, and that's it.
Yeah,
so.
that's definitely. And speaking of Android Wear devices as well, I did just see a headline. I didn't get a chance to read on it, but it said a new wave of Android Wear devices to be revealed at the IFA trade show in Berlin next week. I've already seen hints of the Moto 360. Now, do you have an Android Wear device, Stephen?
You know, I had kind of gone went away.
Okay.
And it went
All right. Yep. So I thought that the next version of the Moto 360 was not going to have the flat tire at the bottom, where it's circular in the very part. And I've already seen some leaked images of the second version. It's got the flat tire, and I was very disappointed because it's like that. My eyes can't go off of that. I keep seeing that, just think this is an incomplete display. And then knowing that LG managed to, of course, the device is a little thicker though, that LG doesn't have the flat tire. And then I saw a Huawei version that's a gorgeous looking piece of hardware watch that doesn't have a flat tire. So if indeed that the 360 has it, once I saw it, I was like, wow, that's suddenly not a contender for my next watch. And I already saw some specs on the version 2 of the Zen watch, and it didn't have enough extra. It seems such a small incremental change to this one that while I like the look of this watch, that I was like, not that interested. So I am very interested to see if Huawei is going to announce it next week, because that one, the pictures I've seen look very interesting. Also, just to see, just on any of these devices, what additional hardware capabilities they've got. This one doesn't have Wi-Fi, so that the new versions of Android Wear can take advantage of where you're connected on Wi-Fi, but this one doesn't have Wi-Fi built into it. So that obviously will be there. And then, what other things will be interesting to see, as well as, even though the Huawei is going to announce it, is it going to be announced? So far, Huawei has not really officially sold any hardware in the United States. So is it going to be they finally have broken that nut and finally I would think that the answer is yes, and the reason I think that is that if the rumor holds true that the two Nexus devices made for Google this year are LG and Huawei, then inroads have been made to clear them to selling in the United States. So we'll see. But anyway, we'll obviously probably be talking more about that next month.
Have you seen those pictures of the Huawei Nexus?
You're sounding very watery, Stephen.
Oh, have you seen the pictures for the Huawei Nexus online?
Yeah, you're almost unintelligible. I can't hear you.
I was going to say, have you seen pictures for the Huawei?
I'm not sure why it's, well, since I can't really hear you that well, I'll just, he's going to try reconnecting perhaps. There's also, most recently, an update to Android Wear. And again, I'm just going to switch this just for the posterity in case that somebody later wants to watch this. I'm going to switch over to my other camera so that I can show my watch. Oh, okay, asking about the leaked pictures of the Huawei Nexus. I saw the leaked pictures of the Huawei Nexus, and I was not very impressed. The one that's supposed to be possibly a leaked picture of the LG Nexus 5 looks a lot like the original Nexus 5 for the most part, as far as screen size, supposed to be the same size. I like this size, and then the Huawei one is supposed to be larger, like an iPhone 6 Plus or Nexus 6 size. I like this size, so I would take this over the larger one myself, because between this and having my Chromebook, that's all I need when I head out the door. So that I don't need this huge. If I want to see larger screen, I'm going to pull out my Chromebook and look that way. But let me see, I might need to dim my screen here. Go to my brightness settings here. Adjust brightness, go down to here. Yeah, the pictures for the Nexus, the Huawei one, like the top part looked like this is all a part sticking up. But now that I got my brightness turned down here on my watch, I'll show some of the things that are available now on this latest version of Android Wear. When I swipe on over, there's Together, and I haven't done Together yet. I was going to connect with somebody, but I got busy in this meeting, so then I've not played with it. Let me just, I'll tap on it and see if it's going to send an invite from a phone. Let's say pair with a friend. Give me just a moment. I'm doing this from, say, Hangouts, and I'm going to invite Jason. All right, I just sent my friend Jason an invite, and so that what Together is supposed to do is some of that similar functionality, which I honestly think is kind of goofy, is where you can end up sending doodles and whatnot to one another. But what it does do is so that if you did have your spouse, your friend, or whatever, and you wanted to be connected through this Together feature, your watches are now kind of connected, so you can just be able to message directly to one another. So hopefully it's going to have more value, and I'll do more on that, but that's over in the apps now, as well as all right, someone sharing the picture. I'll look at that in a moment. Is that there's actually just a weather app, so you just launch the weather app. This normally was a card that was a Google Now card, so I swipe on up and it shows the next days of the weather. So it's not really all that robust. I thought that it might be a little bit something more, but that's it. You just swipe up and see 4 days of weather. And the other one is Translate. Google Translate is now on Android Wear. So right now, I was playing with this earlier with one of my developers who speaks Spanish. And so then, right now I could just tap this and say, could you please tell me how to get to the hotel? All right, and so then it's got the Padre, I don't know how to pronounce it. But anyway, it says something to that effect. He did say that the translation when we were playing back and forth today, he goes, it's not exact, but it was close enough because then once he said something in Spanish and it translated back to English for me, I could see the sentence. Yeah, it was a little janky, but it's pretty cool when you think about the fact that you could just, right there from your watch, that if you did need to speak with somebody, obviously if you needed to have a robust conversation, it would make a lot more sense to do it from the phone, because then you've got that where you could even write if you need to, etc. But it's just cool that they added that capability. Another one that they added, which I've got this, it's called Weather Time, and I like where I've customized it to where it shows my agenda items. So right now it shows that Brandy and Lucky's lessons are tomorrow at 6:30. I see that it's 73 degrees, it's 8:01, Thursday, August 25th, and I've got 28% battery left. And that I was able to customize. You can choose which things that you want to end up having show on your watch face. Now there are some other watch faces that I'll show if I change this one for a moment that allow for you to end up having elements of this that are customizable, so that if I tap on this, it brings up the agenda. Actually, that was Google Fit, so that brought the wrong thing up for me. I didn't really customize this watch very well, this watch face. Let's see here. There we go. So now it's just showing my agenda. Font's really ridiculously small on this watch face, but this is just one that's taking advantage of where there's more interactivity that you can do from the watch face and tap on certain widgets or elements on the watch face. So you can see that both Google and Apple are trying to have there be some more of that interactivity. Myself, what I would prefer is that I go back on over to my weather time, and this is telling me everything that I've really. Right now it says no events. It takes a moment. It'll refresh and it'll show that appointment for tomorrow. But even when this, see now it's like an ambient mode. It just goes to that black and white. Now it finally did update so that it's 6:30. Then I'm able to just glance at my watch, and it's likewise for on my phone. I've always liked this. Call me old school, but that's okay. That if you were to look at one of my pocket PCs from 1999, it would look just like this. I have the weather. I have my agenda. It's scrolling agenda, so I can scroll through it all right from here. Granted, I know I've shared this with someone from iPhone, and they say, you know what, I can pull that down from the curve and see the same stuff. It's like, yes, you can. I can just turn on my screen and look and see it, and it's there. Just like now, I can just turn my wrist and say, what is my next appointment? And then just see it, and it's just, that's convenient. And so at that point, even though the Android Wear now has added that capability for you to tap on the screen and drill down further, I don't really care. I don't want to go looking at several days worth of weather. I just want to know right now it's 73 degrees outside. Cool. You know, once it's like wintertime, then it's like, wow, is it cold enough that I got to throw on a coat yet? That kind of thing. That's all I want to know. If I want to look at the forecast, I'm not even really paying attention to this. I've got that full-blown NOAA app, and I'm going to go on in. It's going to tell me the weather from hour to hour. When we played at the fair, I wanted to know what was the chance of rain, and then it turned out like at 9 o'clock it was going to be like a 20% chance of rain, but hour by hour it showed it. I'm going to go to an app, I'm going to drill back into the phone, right. So let this just do more of a concentrated, purposeful kind of a thing. One thing I will say is...
One thing Apple doesn't do well is the home screen.
Right, I mean, it's because it's still just the rows of apps, and now you can make folders, and that's it. And
instead of saying, these are the 7 things I want on the home screen.
Right. Yeah. Although I will say that Android has had a lot of widgets. I don't have a lot of widgets on, really. I mean, the clock here is a widget, the weather's a widget, and the agenda thing is a widget. And over here is an Evernote widget. I really don't need the Evernote widget. It could just be the icon to launch it. Because 9 times out of 10, I'm tapping on this and just opening up Evernote. Sometimes, yeah, I'll tap on search or just tap on to open up a new note. But it's like they made a widget just to make a widget because every app has got to have a widget. You know, you just, oh my gosh, we got to offer some widgets. But it's still nice to have that option. That's the one thing that I do like. It's just the option to be able to have that kind of stuff. And people are blowing up the Hangouts now, discussing back and forth, which, by the way, also blows it up on my watch, as you can see, the Hangouts coming up on there as well.
I can hear.
So, and that's actually where it's kind of nice that I can just swipe down, and then I can just let me say no on notifications, and then now I'm kind of like in silent mode. And that's even on my phone. So the Hangouts will still pop up here on the screen of the Hangout that we're having, but now it's quiet, and my phone and my watch are going to continue to drive me nuts. So one last thing I want to show, and I don't know earlier, Stephen said that it wouldn't show on the screen, but for the sake of hoping this works, I'm going to try something different. Let me get my cord together here. And this is just for Android, so sorry you iOS users, but what I'm going to do first is go over here to the Hangout, and I'm going to attempt to share my internal display. All right, and then this is called Visor, V-Y-S-O-R, and this was made by Kush Dutta, who is a developer who used to be involved with the Cyanogen mod, and he's just a brilliant developer. He also made an app called Allcast, which is kind of like Chromecast, but it will allow you to cast anything on your screen. Well, what he has created is an app that's actually an extension for Chrome called Visor, V-Y-S-O-R, and I'm going to open it up and plug in my USB cable to my phone. And we've done this before, but it's just nice that he's done this. Minimize that. Let me open up again find devices. There's my device. I select. And again, I'm hoping that this displays on the Hangout, at least in the room here. It says Visor is connected. Here are some useful keyboard shortcuts. Escape is the back button, F1 is the menu button, and Home is the home button. And so then I just say OK, and now I'm basically, did I kind of lock up? No. OK. There we go. And there is my screen now displaying on my Chromebook. So if I were doing a display, and maybe I'm using a Chromecast, or I'm just connected even just with HDMI or VGA to a monitor, that I could be, or in this case, if this was working as intended, even through a peer.in, which we were talking about earlier, I could be sharing my screen and suddenly navigating. Now, I'm navigating just with my mouse. I'm not sure if on the screen if you actually see my mouse moving around. But so I'm actually just using the touchpad on the Chromecast and operating the phone. It seems to have a little bit of a lag, but I'm also doing a lot of things all here at the same time. But so you can see I've just got my apps open here. And so whatever I would be doing on my phone, I am able to just capture here. So I look forward to being able to use this more in an instance. As I understand, too, he's added a feature to where you're able to possibly see somebody else's device through this interface. So that I guess then, he's talking more like from a developer standpoint, but you can see from a user standpoint it could help as well. I've always longed for, I wish that there was capability to easily just be able to remotely help people, and with Samsung you can. If someone has a Samsung phone, they can put on TeamViewer, and Samsung to this day is the only OEM that has cooperated with TeamViewer to where then you can have TeamViewer remote assist. And my sister has it on her phone, and if she has a problem, then I connect and I've got TeamViewer app running on my phone. I'm suddenly looking at her Samsung screen and can help her through an issue. This would be a similar kind of a thing to where, if need be, you can connect. But it takes it's a little geeky, because for me to actually connect to do this, you actually have to go into your developer options, which if I pull down in the menu here and just show, you have to go on into the settings. Yeah, it's definitely running slow here because I got so much cooking. And in developer options, you actually have to turn on allow debugging. Then, because basically that's what this guy built this for, is to really just be able to like debug stuff from a developer standpoint. But if you did need to display, check out Visor, V-Y-S-O-R. And he literally just released this. It was meant to be just for developer stuff, and someone said, dude, you should make this package it as a Chrome extension. And so he did. So I'm sure more to come on this. Very, very cool. So I just wanted to share that. So I'll go ahead and close it and stop sharing my screen. That's back over to that. I'll switch back over to my screen. So I do see, and I want to open up the, there's a Hangout window off to the side. Where is it here? Nope, that's just that. Oh, they're not talking inside of this. I thought they might be chatting inside of this. Instead, they're in the Hangout. Yeah. Okay, shoot. So I was just wanted to see their conversation. I guess I can pull it up on here real quick and see if they're talking about anything that's...
One of the reasons we're choppy to having the Hangout going in there.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yep, I figured that might be. Oh, so they're talking about Project Fi and the Nexus 6, because Jim Danton has it as well. He has no interest in the new models.
And maybe
I tell you, speaking of the hardware thing, one of the things I really look forward to, and this was supposed to have been it, is fingerprint. Because as I do play with the iPhone 6s at work, then I've got several of the phones to where I've added a digit, I've added a finger, so along with other people that I can go ahead and sign into that phone and start testing really quickly. And I love using Google Wallet. Android Pay is actually supposed to come out next week. Rumor has it they're going to be coming out kind of early ahead of the Android news. And for me to launch Google Wallet and to pay for something in those places where I can do it, I have to enter in a PIN and unlock Google Wallet. I would love instead of just touch and do just like the experience. So that is why I know Jim's saying that he's not interested in the new hardware. That is one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the new hardware. As well as that, while I've really, really overall been very happy with this Moto X and thought it was a great device, I love this leather back, I cannot stand the curved back. I learned with this device how much that I operate my device. I'll just turn my camera down. I operate my device laying down on the ground a lot, and this is so. I'll just turn off my screen for a second. So I'm over there and I'm trying to do stuff, and this thing rocking back and forth drives me batty. Give me the Nexus 5 with a nice flat screen, so when I'm doing it, it doesn't move around any day. Plus, this has wireless charging in it. This does not have wireless charging in it. I have several wireless chargers that are just sitting idle waiting for the next piece of hardware. So I know the Nexus 6 does have wireless charging, but Nexus 6, just like this one, has that curved back, and it feels good in the hand, but aside from that, in all practicality, I realized I use my device laying down a lot. So I even went to the point where I've got a tilt charger. It's one of my wireless chargers at work, and so it's like angled like this, and this sits in there, but it would rock while I was touching it sitting in the charger. I took some of those little like clear plastic sticky things that you like would end up attaching to the bottom of something so they've got grippy feet.
Yes.
And I put one on either side so that when it sits there that there's something that keeps it from rocking and it holds it. And I was like, look at how I had to modify this stand just so I could make this usable while it's sitting in a stand. So that little kind of thing just kind of was enough to tan my hide. It's like I'm ready for a Nexus that's a flat back device. That said, I've covered pretty much everything that I was going to talk about.
I've got one thing.
And hit it, Richard.
We all have bars on the top of our screen, both Wi-Fi, the V, and then depending on who you use, AT&T has a system of 5 bars. You can get numbers instead of bars if you want to. If you want to try to put that on the upper right-hand corner, the negative number, upper left-hand corner, negative number.
Oh, the minus 105?
Yeah.
What is that?
Those are decibels. And the closer to 0, the stronger the signal. Generally around 113 decibels is the low side, and around minus 50 decibels is the high side. So the closer you get to minus 50, as you can see there, that's 103 here. So that's toward the high side, but we're in the back part of a concrete building. That's part of the reason why it's so weak.
But that's the signal?
That's the signal strength. And if you go to Hacker Hostile of Louisville in Facebook, I have a write-up about it, tells you how to do that. It's just a telephone number. You enter, it's just an AT&T number that you enter in there, and then it has the full directions on how you can, it's a test mode, you can leave it in test mode so that you have the numbers all the time. I really like the numbers much better than 2.5 bars or 3 bars.
Right, because then, and those bars, as it was anyway, I remember that there was a big hoo-ha about the signal strength on some of the first iPhones, and that Steve Jobs had the bars were like faked in the imagery that they had because they didn't want to make it seem like AT&T was having a weak signal while they're doing a demo. And there are times where you would also wonder, like, man, why am I slow? And you do look. And mine, instead of actually being bars, is that that little wedge. Not the Wi-Fi antenna one, but the other one, so that it goes from being a tiny little sliver of a triangle on, or it could be a
big wide triangle.
Yeah, and
same difference.
It's so hard to tell. So it's like right here, it's just telling me I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I guess that's just.
But it's neat. I like it because I can see what the number is, and actually you'd think it outdoors you'd have a good high number. It's not necessarily a good number, which is low, negative 50 or something. That's not true. But the best I've been able to get is negative 65, and actually that was downtown at 3rd and Chestnut at the Henry Clay Building. I must be close to an antenna or something.
I know this because that really it's just tech geeky. It's just the way that system with the what the signal strength is measured in, but it just seems so weird as a regular user. They'd be like, so what's your strength? Oh, it's negative this or something.
Yeah.
Rather than just like, how about like just a 1 to 10, and 10 means you've got like full-on strength, and you just be like, where are you at? Well, it looks like it's 2. Instead of just having to translate.
1.5 bars. Yeah.
what the minus, minus 105, you'd be like, it's minus 105 degrees in here?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Feels like it.
All right, well, cool. So then, I know that they were having some chat on there. They didn't actually join, but they were just having some Nexus 6 PHY discussion there. But
and I think a lot of things from Apple are on the close down mode because the 9th of September is coming, and I think a lot of that stuff. Although one day I did get up and I went into to look at my updates, and I had like 40 updates. So that tells me there's big changes coming in 9.
Yeah.
And they've updated. They've already sent their updates out on stuff. You have 40 updates of apps on the iPhone. That's a lot of updates to do.
yeah.
So, and not near as many on my iPad. It's an older iPad, I think is why. It's an original iPad too. So,
Right, so iOS 9, there's a lot of features of that.
A lot of
those not
features
gonna
I'm
apply.
going to be able to pick
Yeah,
up.
so then that, it's just that we were talking about that today about the apps that we, and how far back, so that we're going to, moving forward, say like the latter part of this year, the app for iOS will not include iOS 7. It's already down to like 2 to 3% of the users using it. And likewise with Android, that will end up getting like a 4. It might be like 4.2 or whatever, where we'll consider a cutoff point of how far back we develop. And likewise, then with iOS 9, they're like, you know what, I'm just not going to support.
Yeah.
So then those apps just say, we don't have to worry about it.
I already started looking about getting a new iPad.
So yeah, so for our next meeting, which will be I think
Fourth Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's, or I want to say 25th, but whatever it is, they're in the 20s of, might be the 28th.
Even more.
Yeah, it would help if I just look at my calendar. But for that one, we'll obviously be coming off the heels of the announcement. And by then, devices will already have been released, so that we'll have a lot of good news to be able to talk about. So the September meeting will certainly be a lot more.
The fourth Tuesday, the fourth Tuesday,
The 22nd.
22nd.
Yes. So then, that will be interesting too, because
that's the Tuesday after the products come out on the 18th.
Yep. And I might be in Chicago, so I might be traveling, so I might have to just see as far as like what we'll do for the meeting. Yeah, because I might not be around for that. I'll have to see what I end up doing. Well, I mean, I've done meetings remotely from my house and stuff. I can do it from wherever. But that said, we'll certainly have a lot more news because it'll be all the iOS goodness will be on out. There will be a lot more. If Android Wear is announced at IFA next week, more discussion on that. We'll be on the cusp of there being more Nexus announcement goodness that would be coming in October to be talking about, and who knows what other kind of stuff will get announced, released between now and then. But we'll
Don't
be sure
you
to be
have a barbecue
talking
coming up
about
soon?
Android Barbecue, yes, is in October. It's like the 22nd, 23rd, I believe. As a matter of fact, I did remiss in not mentioning that. But I do have actually a discount if anyone was interested in going. The discount is just for 20% off of a general admission to barbecue, but I do have a MyMobileVille discount code that can be used. So if anyone was interested, by all means, reach out to me. Obviously, you still got to get your butt on down there and get a hotel and all that, but I do have a discount, and I wish that more people were going because it is a blast. Google is definitely having a much stronger presence than they even had last year. I shared a video on Google Plus where it was a video that was put together that promoted the event and was with some of the key developers that are, the principal developers of Android. So Google is big on this now, where before it was really Aaron Kasten's creation with him and some other friends, and now Google is really taking a stronger role in this, where it's almost like I.O. Junior. You've got I.O. for all the developers, it costs $1,000, you got to get yourself out to the San Francisco, et cetera, and then all of a sudden this one being in Dallas and is not expensive and yet still a very strong, powerful, informative couple of days. A lot of fun to be around enthusiasts, had some great barbecue. Ray Walters ends up making some killer barbecue to eat, so if you're so inclined to want to go to it, check it out in Big Android Barbecue. It's definitely something worth attending.
I think we should do the Bourbon iOS here.
All right. So with that, then I'll stop the broadcast, and we'll see you all next month, one way or the other. Peace out.